Postmodern Art Podcast, the podcast dedicated to giving artists who are wowing the world over the platform they deserve. I'm your host, Aiden Ragland, and welcome back to Amateur April, that fantastic time of the year where I tell you about artists that you really should be following today. And with today being the final episode of 2024's edition of Amateur April, before we lay this month to rest, I recommend we head over to the graveyard and enjoy a quality conversation with a fantastic guest today. Today's guest is Bonez Graveyard, an illustrator, animator, and compositor from beyond the grave to provide amazing, heart-stopping animation. Bonez is someone that is very close to our wonderful co-showrunner, Tipsy J. Hartz, who has easily recommended her to me, and thank God that she did, because honestly, Bonez was a really great person to talk to, as you can tell from the conversation you're about to listen to. If you enjoy Bonez, please make sure you support her with the links down in the description below. If you enjoy the podcast, make sure you like, share, subscribe, or follow whatever audio streaming platform you prefer. Leave 5 stars wherever you can. You know I see that stuff and it really does warm my heart. If you want to go a little further with that support, may I recommend checking out the fantastic merch shop that we have on fourthwall.com, with the link to that being in the description below. We have some sensational streetwear from some fantastic former guests of the podcast, and I know you can rock that look today. And look, if all you want is a nice, cool, casual place where you can meet other fellow artists, get a chance to really showcase your work and really grow as a community, well, why not drop by our Discord server, the Artist Sanctuary? The group that we have there is absolutely incredible and is constantly growing all the time, and I think you would be a fantastic addition to that group today. But now, without further ado, please enjoy the Postmodern Art Podcast.
Gordon, taste it.
I'll pass. I'll pass.
Please.
It's a good intro. It's a great intro sound.
That's my Half-Life VRAI intro.
To be fair, there's one server in particular, but I hop into it and it just goes
Chicken.
That's nice.
It's a great way to really introduce myself to the people, you know.
It is.
Like they hear that and they instantly go post because that's what they call me there. So, how did you and Tipsy meet up in the first place? That's something I was like curious of, like, because I never even heard of you before the animated short was about to drop.
So me and Tipsy met up. I think it was over Twitter. I think it was just like a mutual follow.
Okay.
And then it's all such a blur to me, like getting like I post a lot about Farfetched, and like when I post about it, like at the very beginning, like I had all of these friends, like these mutual follows that happen with like my friend group now.
Okay.
And like it's kind of just like when you're friends with someone and like you just forget like how you met. It's just kind of like, oh, we're friends now, and it's like it's always been like that. It's like that kind of thing.
It's like, I knew you from that thing. Oh yeah, I remember that thing. Oh yeah, that thing. So how exactly did we meet because of that thing?
Exactly.
I was gonna say I have like a whole friend group that I'm about to go to MomoCon with actually in May, and like I can tell you like some of them I know them because of the server that we're in, but like I don't remember like the first time I met them like because of the server or whatnot.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah. And it's like, aren't those the best friendships? Where it's like, I don't know how we became friends, but we're friends now.
I don't know how we became friends, but I'm glad we're friends.
Exactly.
All right, Bonez, before we really get going, I must ask the icebreaker question of the podcast, if I may. Let's say you get to go to a desert island on your own accord. It is just you, alone with your thoughts. You get to kick back, relax, breathe. You can truly enjoy yourself for a little bit. With accommodations, you're not stranded on an island. It's just a little personal B&B away from society, like a way for you to finally relax from the stress of life. To make sure you don't go completely insane on this island, though, you can bring one piece of media or one piece of art with you to help with whatever kind of headspace you want on this island. If given this opportunity, what would that one piece be?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
my first like gut reaction was the original 1996 Scream movie. Like that was like the first thing
Ooh.
that popped into my head because I could just watch that movie on repeat for forever. And it's like it's such a factor in like not my writing style, but like in the way like I develop like the type of characters like that I make and
Right.
like a lot of like my identity and like what I like and stuff is like in that movie. Like just the fact of it's a horror movie and it's a slasher movie, but it's kind of like a commentary on it that's like really thoughtful.
Oh yeah, like
And
I was gonna say like especially when that movie like came out, like it basically revolutionized how like the slasher genre became more than anything else.
oh yeah, oh definitely. And I'm like it is like a piece of like queer movie history in a way with
Hmm.
like Billy and Stu. So like I feel like just that movie is like a good representation of like me and what I love and I could watch it like a million times.
I can only imagine. But regardless, the 1996 Scream film. That is your answer. You're locking that in.
Locked in, locked in.
Locked in, locked in. Then let's get locked into the Postmodern Art Podcast. Welcome, everyone. I am your host, Nathan Ragland. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, or follow whatever audio streaming platform you prefer. You would look fantastic in the merch that we have in the merch shop, fourthwall.com. Link to that will be in the description below. And follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, and TikTok at PostmodArtPod for future updates and guest announcements, including today's guest. She is an illustrator, animator, and compositor from beyond the grave to provide amazing, heart-stopping animation. Welcome to the podcast, Bonez Graveyard!
Hello, 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 everybody.
Hello, hello to you as well. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thanks. I just got off of a Stardew Valley gaming sesh, so I'm feeling pretty good.
There you go. That's a nice, good vibe, good mentality, which hopefully we can carry that into this fantastic podcast because I can tell you right now, with the stuff you've already been able to have a hand in, just the little bit I've been able to see, like, you've got a lot of incredible, like, stuff going for you, and I can only imagine where it could potentially take you. And I definitely want to talk about a lot of that and then some. But before we talk about the stuff you've got going on right now, I want to go back a little bit and learn more or less the origin story of Bonez. What got you interested in art and animation in the first place?
I literally was talking to my mom about this the other day. When when I was little, my mom, she would take us to see movies a lot because it was just like a great way to like get out of the house and like, spend like an hour or so of our time. And a lot of the movies that I saw when I was little were like the animated movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was like the very first SpongeBob movie that I saw in theaters. It
Yes.
was like one of my first movies, and I remember watching it and just being like, wow, that's like there was just something so magical about it that like captured my attention, and I was like, I kind of want to do that with the rest of my life. Like I want to tell stories through like this amazing medium of animation. And of course like there's always like the Disney movies you see growing up, but
Right.
it was like the animation outside of Disney, like the wacky stuff that was always capturing my attention growing up. And I was like, I want to make wacky animations like that. Like, I want to tell a story like that, that I think really inspired me to like step into this world.
I mean, especially with some of the wacky stuff, like the one you listed right off the bat, the SpongeBob movie, which like I know people like talk about it in kind of a meme sense sometimes, but also like let's be honest, like the animation for that film is incredible and like it was a great film regardless of what anyone thinks. Like
Oh, yeah.
I'm surprised this isn't talked more on like, great animated films outside of like, the Disney complex or whatnot. Was there any other films outside of like Disney that you could think of like early on really got your attention?
Um, and this is going to be a weird one, but the Curious George movie, I remember
Okay.
being really, really fascinated by that one. Just like the fluidity of the movements. And I think there was like a bubble scene in that movie that like really stuck out to me just from like the colors of it. And like I always just like, I loved like colors as a kid. So when I
Hmm.
saw that, it was like eye candy to me. It was like so magical.
Well, there you go. There you go. When did it go from this like general, love and appreciation for animation and truly to when did it go from that to truly a passion and wanting to make it your career?
That's a hard one. I think it was when I started entering the online space and
Oh, okay.
actually, yeah. And actually, like Warrior Cats, I was really big into Warrior Cats. And the Warrior Cats fandom is always so amazing with like creating like the multi-animator projects and
Yep.
like getting to see like all of that and like the behind the scenes. And like I think one of the artists I followed was like, yeah, I do this on the side, and then my main job is like working in a studio. And I was like, that's right. You can like this is like a job. Like people have to like do this to get paid. And I think in that moment when I saw somebody was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going off to animation college now." I was like, that's what I want to do. Like I want to make that into a career.
Well, there you go. I mean, especially the Warrior Cats fandom alone. Like you said that, and I'm like, yep, no, I get it. I totally understand. Like
Exactly.
to be fair, I have interviewed like the people that are currently working on the Warrior Cats animated project, like as close to an official project as possible to it. So like I get that love and animation coming from there, especially like as that being part of your exposure to the internet more than anything else. Um, like I can only imagine, like, especially with that being like the first step, how much further down the rabbit hole you went, the more you got to explore on the internet when it came to animation and such.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Like that was just like the tip of the iceberg, and it was
Mm,
like it was only like further down the rabbit hole from there. Like just like clicking on every single like map or whatever AMV, and I was just like, wow, that's so interesting. Like that, like people are just coming together online and making these amazing animated projects, and it's like, how do I get in there? How do I get involved in that? How do I create something like that, you know?
absolutely, absolutely. Now I'm wondering when along this journey, I know animation is obviously a major part of who you are as a person, but obviously I'm talking to a skeleton, at least by the icon or whatnot. And you did talk about Scream being like the one film you wanted to bring with you. So when did horror kind of creep in and became a major part of what you love and
So
enjoy?
horror's always been kind of a part of my identity, like artistically. And I
Okay.
know I talked about like SpongeBob and Curious George, but in reality, a lot of what influenced my style was like Invader Zim or like the Tim Burton
Mm,
movies like Corpse Bride or Beetlejuice or
there you
whatever.
go.
And even then, like when I was little, and I probably shouldn't have been watching them, but I was watching horror movies with my mom, and it was like these like slasher movie icons have just always been with me, like growing up, and like obviously it's scary, but like in the horror genre, like I have a lot of fond memories of just like growing up and watching these movies with like my family and whatever. And yeah, I think that just kind of stuck with me through and like my artistic voice through my whole journey in art.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I know you may have hinted at it with obviously your screen pick or whatnot, but was there a specific like horror icon or like horror movie that kind of sticks with you as kind of like the definitive like this is my personal favorite or the one I enjoy the most when it comes to horror? Do you have like a personal favorite one?
Definitely the original Halloween franchise,
There
I
you go.
think. Unpopular opinion, but I personally loved number 3. I
Mm,
loved like the campiness of it. I loved like the Halloween masks they wore were so iconic. And I just remember it like always creeping me out because it was so outside and outlandish for, what I expected of the series. And like and it's my mom's favorite too, so like of
oh,
course we watch it a lot.
oh, that's nice. You both are bonding over people getting brutally murdered. Isn't that sweet?
Exactly.
There is no stronger bond than realizing that if a situation like this happened, you and the person that you love the most are able to get out of the situation because you watched enough horror films.
Exactly. And it's like it's gotten to the point where it's like when there's a new horror movie comes out, my mom and I are like, "All right, let's go see it. We got to go see it."
Okay, okay, that's fair. That's valid. I was gonna say there was. It just reminded me. There was a time period where my stepmom and my stepsister they were obsessed with like the Walking Dead stuff. You know that like somewhat in the horror realm, but more like in the drama realm or whatnot. But they were so obsessed to it to the point to where at one point my stepmom bought a zombie survival kit that included like a machete among other things in there. like the two of them were like making plans like, okay, if everything goes down, we'll go to this prison over here because it'll probably be abandoned and such. Like they were like doomsday prepping without doomsday prepping, you know.
That's the best kind, like that's so great. Like just pretending like if this were to happen in real life, here's what we would do.
Absolutely. I can only imagine if given the opportunity, because, as someone that loves horror and stuff, I imagine you've probably seen some stuff that's like, that's not, that, like, this could be so much better when it comes to horror aspects. Not that it's a bad film, but like there's something about it that could be so much better, especially in, like the
Oh yeah.
animation, especially if in like given the animation realm. I'm curious if
Oh
you had
yeah.
I'm curious if you had the opportunity to like take a horror icon or a horror franchise and make your own like little mini property out of it. Do you have one that comes to mind? Is there one that you'd love to tinker with if given the opportunity?
I think I've tweeted about this before. I would love to take it, like the original It by Stephen King, and make like
Okay.
an animated like movie or show based around that because I think a lot of the ideas within that book and a lot of the concepts, like it would loan itself so well to the world of animation. Like
Mm-hmm.
just in like Pennywise's like whole like mantra of like circus and like the deadlights and all of that. Like I think it would just be look so beautiful, like animated.
I honestly like, especially knowing both the original one and even the remake one, like some of the visuals that they were able to incorporate in the live action versions, like given the opportunity to go really into the animation, oh, those things could be like bone chilling. Like that could have a
Oh
lasting
yeah.
impact on audiences more than anything else.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And like I don't know, like it would, and not only that, but like with it, like it's a big book. Like I read the
Yes.
whole thing, and like I feel like doing it as a movie, like a live action movie, kind of does it a disservice. I feel like spreading it out over like an animated sequence, like a series,
Mm-hmm.
would be able to like delve more into like the characters and more into like the aesthetics and like the meanings behind it and the symbolisms in it because it is such like a thick, rich book of just a wealth of stuff to tap into that I think sometimes the live action stuff doesn't get the chance to do because of obviously like real life limitations.
Yep. Yep. I mean, partially that, and also like anytime there's ever like a book to media adaptation like that, there, I could be wrong, but I'm sure a lot of people can agree whenever I say that, they tend to leave a good bit of stuff out, especially some of the like important details or certain aspects of it that would have made a film that's pretty good actually a lot more intriguing and get you more invested in the characters and such.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. And I can think of like a couple movies just off the top of my head where I would be like, that would look so good animated. Why is this live action?
Right, right. I mean, just look at it. Look at the look at the opposite effect when people take animated stuff and make it live action. It's like it was already good animated. You didn't need to do the live action aspect.
You're just making it lose its charm.
Exactly. Like they very rarely make it better when they make it to live action. I'm not saying they never, but they very rarely do make it better when it gets to live action.
I know, exactly.
But I imagine, the love for animation that you have, as well as the love for the horror stuff and whatnot, it kind of lends a hand into one of the bigger properties, or at least one of the bigger indie properties that I've noticed you've been a major fan of, and that is the wonderful indie animated series in development called Far Fetched. Now,
Oh yeah.
now I'm curious, how did you first hear about this series?
I think the clip was recommended to me on on YouTube, and
Okay.
like me being me, I was so curious. I was curious about it, and I clicked, and I watched just like the little tidbit that they gave us, and I was like, this is so just charming, and it's right up my alley. Like it mixes like cutesy aesthetics and horror aesthetics and animation all into like this beautiful like symphony, and like immediately I was just hooked. Like I was just like, I love this. I just like, I can't wait for it to come out. I can't wait to see more of it. I can't wait to just you know have it. Like
Right.
so I've just become loyal to it because in a way it's obviously Scooby Doo, but like it reminded me of like the kind of kiddie horror films that I watched growing up that I loved, like Coraline or Monster House or
There you go.
whatever. And that's just a genre that I hold like so near and dear to my heart. So it was kind of just love at first sight for me, honestly.
I mean, especially those films that you listed alone. Like, goodness, you want to talk about like kid horror films? That is like those two right there are like the benchmark for what to expect. And I just wanted to ask this real quickly. Whenever you met the teaser, did you mean like the like 30-second or like the minute one that they released, or did you mean like the original Hell Puppy like concept film?
I think it was the one where I think Rue was filming a
Okay,
camera.
I was gonna say you said
Yeah.
you said Rue alone, and that makes sense because that's the because like I remember when Ashley Nichols, when they first like teased the concept, it was originally called Hell Puppy, and it was like Kira and like Kira causing chaos in the house or whatnot. So already the fact that you included Rue tells me which one it is. Which, I mean, either way, that's a great start. That was a great
Oh yeah.
first foot forward for the Far-Fetched crew, and obviously it got you hooked line and sinker more than anything else. So
Obviously. Oh yeah.
I was say, what about it exactly like intrigued you and like roped you into it? Like, was it the fact that, like you said, it was that the loving, almost like tribute to like those Scooby Doo, kid horror films or whatnot?
Definitely that was like one of the main reasons for it. I also I work a lot with dogs in
Okay.
just my job, and like seeing Rue like with Kira, I was like, "Oh, I can kind of relate to that, like going with crazy dogs all day." And then just like I think like when I found Ashley's Twitter and like she loved werewolves, and I was like, "Oh, I love werewolves too." Like another one of my favorite movies is Van Helsing, and
Oh,
like
okay.
yeah, so I was like, well, this is just perfect. Like this is so me, and this is like everything I would ever want from like an indie show. So it was like a match made in heaven.
There you go. I was gonna say I laughed a little bit because I have had Dave and Ashley on this podcast, episode 100, in fact, or no, 101, to talk about Farfetch stuff like that. I remember like us bringing up the conversation about Ashley's like love of werewolves and such, and it was, oh goodness. So like I actually like see that connection, but I'm also thinking of like all the times they've been on like live streams and stuff, and they've been teased about the werewolf aspect. Goodness. I mean, like, I can only imagine. I also couldn't help but laugh for a second because you said, like, you're a huge fan of dogs. I imagine that's why you more or less made your persona a skeleton dog as well. Am I correct in assuming that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yep. I'm a big dog person. I love dogs in all shapes and sizes. And they're just like horror movies, big part of growing up. Like I always had a dog, so very close connection to my canine friends.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was just gonna say, like, honestly, like, I if I hadn't said it before, I'll say it now. Your little icon or your little persona that you use to portray yourself, I love it, especially the way that like you've illustrated it or whatnot. Like, it's top notch. Like, one of
Thank
the
you.
like I cannot get enough of it, and I wish there was more like skeleton animals like that out there in the world. You know?
Oh yeah. And like I don't know, like originally I was gonna make my Sona just a dog, but I was like, that's kind of like everyone's got like a dog Sona.
Mm-hmm.
So just to like stick out, I was like, well, I really like horror. Why don't I play into that kind of? So I was like, why don't I just make a skeleton dog? Because like it's scary, and dogs like bones. So what better irony than a dog who is bones?
No, there you go. There you go. And I know I kind of hinted it already if I do leave that part in the podcast or whatnot, but that love for far-fetched and stuff with that, is that how you got associated with the wonderful co-showrunner of this podcast, Tipsy J Hearts?
Oh yeah, I I posted a lot about it, and I think the official Farfetched account retweeted one of my pics, and I think that's how Tipsy found my art and followed me.
Okay.
And so the rest is history from there.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I will definitely talk about that friendship and how it's kind of developed to some cool opportunities for the both of you more than anything else. But one of the things I wanted to emphasize real quickly, I didn't get a chance to see it, but I imagine, being a fan of Farfetch and whatnot, you've got to have a Farfetch OC. Am I correct in assuming that?
Definitely.
Would you like to talk a little bit about that OC? Because I imagine if it's any fun like what Tipsy's done for hers, I imagine you have a lot of fun with yours as well.
Oh yeah. So actually, In the Pines is about my Farfetched OC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and in fact, if you look at the very beginning with that wide pan out shot, you'll see Lauren Weber from Farfetched in there, as well as like off
Okay.
to the side there's a picture of Kira. It's just like a cute little Easter egg, so it's like you don't forget your roots in a way.
Right.
So my Farfetched OC is named Wisteria, and she's a werewolf, of course, my favorite. And she has a twin brother named Hemlock, and they're kind of estranged from each other in a way. They had a really bad falling out in a while back, and so Hemlock left, and they haven't seen each other since. So Wisteria's kind of on her own in this little cottage in the woods type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And one day, Papa Swirl breaks down in the road, and the band, needing help, they wander the woods and they find her cabin, and that's how she meets up with him, and the rest is kind of history.
Okay.
And yeah, so her whole spiel is that like she was kind of alone for a while, and she thought like, oh, that's just how it is. And then the band comes along, and it's like, well, this might be my one chance to go out into the world, so she goes with them, and that is that. And
wild, crazy antics ensue. No.
exactly.
No, that honestly sounds great, and I'm glad that you talked about it in the Pines, because we'll definitely talk about that in a second. But before we obviously transition to that, I gotta wonder as well. I imagine a little mini dream of yours is, especially being a huge fan of Farfetch and stuff like that. I imagine a dream at some point would be to get the opportunity to work on the show. Am I correct in assuming that?
Oh, definitely. Like, if I ever got a chance to work on that show, I would honestly cry over that. I did get the opportunity in the past fall to do the banner for the Farfetch server, so that was pretty sweet. Yeah, that was pretty sweet to do. But even like outside of like, oh, I'll never get a chance to work on the show, I still like love it to bits. Obviously getting a chance to work on something like that would be like such a big dream, and such like an emotional moment for me, because it's like something you love so much, and being able to contribute just like a little bit part of it would like kind of just be like, I don't know how to put it, like a, not a dream, but like an out of body experience.
I can only imagine.
I know, right?
I mean, I've certainly have those like out of body experiences, like doing stuff with like the podcast and stuff, like getting the chance to talk to certain people that I never thought I'd have an opportunity to. It's just kind of that like stand back, almost like surreal moment of like, oh my god, I'm getting an opportunity to do this. How did I get here? What am I doing? So,
I know, exactly. It's like, how did I get here?
Like, especially for you, like just getting a chance to work on that banner alone must have been surreal. But like now thinking like above and beyond. I mean, I wouldn't say you never get the opportunity, because the opportunity, opportunities come when you least expect it. So you may never know. You might get the opportunity to work on either animation or maybe compositing for like certain aspects of Farfetch.
Exactly. Like, anything is nothing too small for me. Like, any kind of animation job to me is like, no job is too small. Like, I'm kind of a jack of all trades. Like, I'm always like experimenting in different areas of the animation production line. So, any job for me is like a big deal.
Is that part of the reason why Tipsy was more than happy to have you be a part of the crew for the Evil Little thing?
Oh yeah, exactly. So Tipsy is so great. Like, I love Tipsy so much. She has been such a big part of like finding my footing in the artist world, and like being like a guide, and like do's and don'ts, and like just like having like a general set of rules. And like this is just me going on like a I love Tipsy rant for a second.
Hey, there's a reason why I have her helping me, run this podcast. So go off.
It's just like it was kind of like when I was younger and like first stepping into the field, it was like kind of scary, and it's like such a big vast ocean of like talent and knowledge, and it was like I didn't know where to start first. And just having Tipsy there, and to be like, hey, like this is the next step, or like this is what you should do, or like just being like, oh, I know this person and let me get you in contact with them. It's like we have like a joke between us that it's like, oh, she's big sis and I'm little sis, kind of. So I hold Tipsy in a really high regard, and I love that girl to pieces.
I mean, absolutely. And so getting a chance to work on a fun little show like the Evil Little Thing, that must be a fun little step in that little artist direction more than anything else, just to get that little bit of experience in there.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like when Tipsy approached me about that and was like, "Do you want to work on this?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, absolutely." And like I love it too because again, it goes back to that horror thing and it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's just like a fun little like series to work on and like the whole cast is like a family, so
Oh, yeah.
it's just like a great place to be.
I mean, more than anything else, because I mean, I'm. Oh, sorry. Ooh, Jesus, I knocked on the desk. Anyways, no, I was gonna say, like, I'm a person that helps out with the show as well. Like, I'm helping Tipsy basically translate her vision into the scripts more than anything else, because she's got a great direction that she wants to go with this show, and like getting the chance to just like work on this thing is already amazing as is, but especially the crew that she was able to amass together and the way they've been able to help bring forth that vision that she has, like obviously I think you're a more than welcome addition to that crew considering the fact that you've been able to have so much fun with it so far.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And like I know Tipsy like comes to me sometimes with like the obscure problems like there was like a Maya question she had, so I'm doing like 3D stuff and I'm also doing like video editing stuff and like I also do a little bit of server managing stuff from time to time. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like it's kind of like those like little odd end jobs that like are a little bit more like out there. Like I'm so happy to do because it's like again like I have like that jack of all trades kind of like approach to how I make art and how I like create projects. So
Well, there you go. There you go. I mean, especially getting a chance to work on something like that. And I love the whole entire like big sister, little sister mentality that you're talking about, because I imagine that was very helpful, especially when you were developing your own stuff, which we'll talk about, which I've been wanting to talk about for a bit. And that is this incredible little animated short that you developed called In the Pines. Now, I imagine this was obviously a school thing, but also seeing how it has that fun little connection to Far Fetch, that thing that you love. I'm wondering, how did the concept for this short come to be?
so we our show like our senior show it got pushed up to like March.
Oh, wow.
And so yeah, so our student film time got cut to like 1 minute or so, and obviously I went over with like a minute 30. So at the time, when I was coming up with this with my short, I was like, okay, I need to do something that I love and that I'll want to work on like constantly for over the course of the next few months, and I also need to make it so it's kind of like short and like not like 5 minutes long. So I made like a list of everything I loved, and Farfetch was at the top of the list. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I have this OC in Farfetch, Wisteria, and she's got a lot of good lore that could kind of be like a standalone original thing that I could explore. And then the next question was, how do I explain that in a minute and 30 seconds? So I'm very musically oriented. I love to listen to music and like come up with stories based around the lyrics. So I
Okay.
had heard this, yeah, I had heard this little folk song called In the Pines, and I thought it was just so beautiful, and I loved like the energy and the aesthetic of it, and the lyrics of it matched their situation so well that I was like, this is just like a perfect like just like a little segment of it to put to like this brief glimpse into the past of what had happened. So it kind of came together that way of like, oh, I have this love of music, I have this character from this thing I really love, and it fits within the time constraint. Let's go in that direction. Let's explore that. And the nice thing about it was that In the Pines is like a public domain folk song.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah, so my sister actually did the background track for it. So
Ooh, okay.
yeah, my biological sister in this instance, not
No, I mean, regardless, having like basically making this like in a way either a true family or a found family affair to help you out with this project or whatnot.
exactly.
Like that's cool regardless, especially with the way that it was executed. Like First off, I gotta say, first and foremost, your animation for it was absolutely amazing. I love the style that you had, kind of the look and the feel that you had going for it. Like, it was a really well done animation in general. But Tipsy's performance in it as well, like, you know, singing the In the Pine song or whatnot, it was bone chilling. Like, it was
Oh
really,
yeah.
she did a really wonderful job, like, really performing that piece.
Oh yeah. And like I knew like the moment I said like, oh, I'm gonna have Wisteria singing the song in my head, I was like, well, Tipsy obviously has to do it. Tipsy is such a talented singer. Gotta be Tipsy.
Well, there
So,
you go.
and I think the moment I said to her like, oh, I'm gonna do this like music project, she was instantly like just on board, like, yes, I want to do it, like, let's do it. And I just love that about Tipsy. She's always down to like hop on some crazy project that I come up with.
Oh yeah. If there's one thing I know about Tipsy, whenever you need her most, she is more than willing to help out. Like,
Oh yeah.
she is always coming in clutch, especially whenever I needed her. Hence why we have this episode of the podcast today. No, but I mean, regardless, like, she, like, you know, going back to, like I said, like, she did a fantastic performance or whatnot, and I think like the way that you portrayed like that emotion more than anything else, especially with like both the actual like character herself as well as like the almost dreamlike visual sequence that went along with it. Like, you really did a good job, like, accentuating that emotion of it, especially in such a short amount of time. Like, I cannot tell you how much I applaud you for really delivering such a good, powerful piece in a short amount of time.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Like I was so worried like is it gonna hit? Like is the story gonna land? And like to hear like, oh yeah, it landed. I'm relieved. I'm so happy about that.
There you go. I mean, especially with that little bit or whatnot, it almost makes me curious to see what more you'll be able to do with it. Like, obviously, I know it's like more or less a far fetched OC, but like, have you ever thought about taking these characters or whatnot and expanding more on it, whether it be like comic, animated form? Like, what would you like to do with more like in the Pine stuff?
I would like if given the chance, I would love to work on like probably a comic with them, like just exploring like the current with them and like the past and stuff like that because I do have like a lot of like lore, I guess you could say, with them.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it entwined with Farfetched and some of it just purely original. And the funny thing about it is that because they're linked to like this universe that like I don't even fully understand yet because the show's not even out yet.
Right.
Um, a lot of it is like up in the air of like before I can like concrete it. Kind of more like I need to get a little bit more information about the universe of Farfetch before I can fully cemently say like, oh, this is how this lore is gonna go down or something like that.
I mean, I can only imagine, especially once we get more details about the show. But even then, like, if you're given the opportunity to, I can only imagine how expansive and how incredible the story you could potentially tell with this kind of thing. Like, I could tell from that little bit alone that you wanted to tell so much more. There's so much more of a story there to tell. But even if it's not with that, I imagine you have a good bit of stories that you want to tell. I'm genuinely
Oh yeah.
curious, like, outside of In the Pines, like, if you were to stray away from the far-fetched route, is there any sort of, like, animated concept that you would love to tinker with and potentially make a reality at some point?
So I'm actually working on an animation meme with these two right now.
Ooh.
I have these two slasher villains that are like I developed I think my sophomore year of college. And the whole premise, the title, working title right now is called Killer Joke. It's about two slasher villains from entirely different movies who are kind of forced together to be roommates. And it's kind of like a
Oh
horror
my god, they
movie.
were roommates. I'm sorry, I had to get that out of my system. Go on, please.
Of course, everyone does. Everyone does. It's like every time I give this pitch, they're like, and they were roommates? And it's like, yep, yep. So it's kind of like the idea. It's kind of like the idea is like it's a slasher movie from the perspective of the villains in a way. And I think like especially with movies like Scream or my guilty pleasure, Freddy versus Jason.
There
There's a
you
lot of
go.
comedy within that genre, so I think that would be like my. If I were to pitch an animated pilot or whatever, that would be my pitch.
I mean, that obviously, like, my own personal meme aside or whatnot, like, that sounds just like a fun little concept. Like, just having like two slasher villains be like almost like a what's the word, either like spy versus spy, or like just, anything you could do I could do better kind of concept, like, forced to live together and have to deal with each other's BS in one way or another. That just sounds fun more than anything else.
Oh yeah, and I when I was developing it, I think I was rereading Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, and I think that kind of shaped a little bit of like what I imagine it to be and like the aesthetic of it. Yeah, but Freddy versus Jason was also like a really big inspiration for it, like having like an official thing where two big villains are interacting with each other, and it's kind of like so bombastic and like so comedic in a way. Like that movie was like a slasher movie, but it was so like over the top that it was like it's kind of more of a comedy when you watch it.
Well, there you
And
go.
that's just like a exactly.
I mean, either way, like, even though I imagine, I don't know how early in the process you are developing this stuff, but I'm interested to see how much further you want to go with this thing. Like, because even just the bare description alone has me intrigued more than anything else. Like, because obviously we all, part of the reason why we love a horror film sometimes is like, or at least a horror icon, is sometimes the odd charm that they have, whether it be like the silent charm of, oh my god, I'm gonna murder you, or like you were talking about with like Freddy versus Jason, like Freddy always having that fun little like one liner or whatnot before going in for the kill. Like it's a fun little charm. So having something like that clashing, oh my god, that it makes me excited. It really does.
That's so great.
Also, I'm gonna put this out there. If you need some voice actors for one of the killers, I can give it a shot.
Perfect. Excellent.
I mean, regardless, like it's really cool to like see you already either creating your own opportunities or getting a few like cool opportunities here and there, especially considering the fact that you were talking about it being your senior thesis that you just released. You're basically about to, or not, if not already, like really get your foot out there and really exploring what the possibilities could be in the animation space. Like, I can only imagine how excited you must be, but also like how nerve-wracking it could potentially be to really finally go forth and go for that dream you've been wanting for years.
Oh yeah. I mean, I graduate like the very beginning of May, so it's like it's getting close.
Yep.
And just paying attention to what's going on in the animation world right now, like the rumored strike about to happen, and like everyone's kind of like struggling to find work, and like there's like that side of it that kind of scares me. But on the other side, I see everybody like I see like the indie animation community rallying together to like create projects, and just as much as there is a dark side, there is a light side that you have to look at. So it's scary, but it's also like exciting in a way.
I mean,
It's kind of like that like yin and yang kind of feeling.
especially with how the entertainment industry has just been in the past couple of years alone, I get
Oh
that.
yeah.
I get that both fear but also excitement. Like, especially like I said, the possibilities that you have, whether it be in the industry like as is, or like getting to help out on incredible indie projects like we've been talking about throughout this entire thing. I mean, considering where you got to this point, where you're about to be, like, obviously with how deeply entrenched you've been in art in one way or another, like thinking of your whole entire journey as a whole, are you surprised with more or less how much you've been able to develop as an artist?
Oh, definitely. There are times when like I look back on like art from like a couple years ago, and I'm like I used to think this was like the best I could do. And then like I look at my art today and it's like, well, will I look at this like 5 years down the line and be like, "Oh, that's not the best I can do anymore." And obviously probably is the answer. Like you're all in my belief, it's like art is kind of like a mountain, and you're always climbing it, and sometimes you can like stop and just look back at how far you've come, but like it's just a continuous climb up and skill and stuff. So I think down the line when I do look back on like my far-fetched phase, which I don't plan on leaving ever.
It's not phase, mom.
It's not a phase. I'm just I'm just excited. Like I'm excited to see like where I go next, and of course, just looking back at like where I've been, and yeah, I think that's just like an important part of me is just knowing where I've been and like where I'm going next.
Well, there you go. Well, there you go. For this next question, if I may, for where you may be going next, what if I give that next step a little bit of the dream scenario, if I may, and give it to you, Bones? Let's say I am Big Shot Mr. Moneybags. I come to you and I'm like, look, Bones, we've seen what you've been able to make so far, and we know that there's something there. We can tell that there's something incredible ready to just be unleashed onto the world. We just know that you need a little extra push, a little extra platform to get you to that point. We have access to everyone and anyone in whatever industry possible, and more money than there should be possible. You really should be compensating the animators. Make sure we avoid that strike or whatever. We'll focus on them in a little bit. Right now, we are focusing on you and you alone. If given this opportunity, what would be the dream Bonez Graveyard project?
Oh shoot. Probably Killer Joke because I think that's the one I've developed the most. I would love to have Bill Hader in the writing room, writing stuff for it. I've seen a lot of his work with Barry, and his writing and directing on that was just beautiful. Like the stories that he told in it, and like his cinematography were just like mind-boggling. So I would definitely want Bill Hader in the writer's room for that because a lot of Barry, especially because when I watched it, I was like in the formation years of college. That shaped a lot of like my writing and like how I approach characters and how I just approach like world building and telling the stories through these characters. So definitely would want Bill Hader in the writer's room.
I'll say just have him write, have him direct, have him voice to both the killers or whatnot. Just have him do everything.
Exactly.
I'll say there you go. I was about to say I know if you had anything else you wanted to expunge on that that concept, but I see you do, so go on.
I would definitely also want my best friend besides Tipsy. His name is Nick.
Okay.
He's not really well known in like the animation world, but he's kind of like my right-hand man in a way. Like there's not an idea that I don't come up with and I immediately go to Nick and I'm like, what do you think of this? Or what do you think of that? Or just like, I think in like this, like the grand scheme of things, I come up with these wacky ideas and I go to him because he is so great at just organization. And like when I make a Discord, I immediately add him and I'm like, hey, can you help me sort this out and stuff? So I would definitely want him on as like a writer or like a co-director or something because a lot of what I do is like he's in it. And we have this joke between us. I'll talk about like with Hemlock, for example, I posted like some character inspirations for him.
Okay.
And Nick was in the comments and he was like, these are all characters that like are just like me. And I messaged him and I was like, I keep doing this thing where I base characters off of you. Like I'm always basing characters off of you.
It's like everywhere I go, I can't help but see you. I'm sorry.
No. So it's like, of course, Nick would have to be involved in some way.
Right.
He's a really talented dude when it comes to writing, and like, I couldn't imagine making anything without him there. Even if it's just like as like a support, like, hey, I'm here to listen to you. Like, he's got to be there with me.
Okay, so just make him like an associate producer officially. There you go.
Exactly. And of course, definitely Tipsy. Tipsy would have to be there. Probably, if we're going back to big name celebrities, I'd love to have Matthew Lillard as like a voice actor in some way.
Oh, that's golden. That's a golden opportunity right there.
Yeah, just his work in Scream and just him in general, like that quirkiness he has, like it's just there's something so charming about it that I think he could add to a role so well. And And this is the part where I just forget every single actor in existence.
I mean, regardless, like what you listed right there, both like big names but also personal ones, like that's a good foundation. That is a good start. And obviously, if you think of any more, like you can think of it later on when you get the money and stuff like that. We'll send it your way. Don't worry about it. We got you covered. But sadly, we gotta get down from the dream scenario. We gotta get back to reality, and I'll ask the ever so generic question that I bet you've been thinking, sadly, a lot about as you finish up your college tenure. Where do you hope to see yourself in, say, 5 to 10 years from now?
5 to 10 years from now. Definitely, like, ingrained into the animation industry. Definitely just submerged in it. I do have a really big love for compositing and just post production, so
Okay.
probably somewhere in that world. My friends call me an After Effects wizard because I'm like the only one in my animation studio right now that like can find my way around After Effects and do like all of the cool glowy effects and make animations look pretty and stuff. So probably somewhere in that world, but I also wouldn't mind doing like merch designs or illustrations because surprisingly that's also been like an area I've been exploring a lot in my artistic journey is just designing merch and designing just little charms and t-shirts and things. I find that's just something I enjoy because I'm not materialistic, but I like holding things in my hand when it comes to things that I love and things that I hold dear. So designing merch and just like how do I capture this character into a tiny little charm, or how do I capture the essence of the show into like this type of merchandise is like something I love exploring right now.
Okay. Okay. No, that's honestly extremely valid. I didn't expand on it a whole lot during the previous part of the interview, but I'm curious, like, because you said that compositing is where you probably feel very comfortable more than anything else. What is it about that aspect of animation that you just want to really dive headfirst into it?
I think it has to do a lot with like when the animation first comes off from like cleanup and like it's just like that flat matte look. I think
Mm.
adding in all of those fancy colors and like all of like the cool effects and stuff, that's when it kind of comes alive to me. Like that's when it becomes real because like it becomes ingrained in like light and shadow and suddenly it's like it's no longer just a flat 2D image. It's like a three-dimensional thing that you're looking into. And I think color really can tell a story, like the lighting of a scene or like the colors that you use. So I think it's just like a beautiful part of the process that like I love it and I love putting together the final thing that gets to be seen on the screen.
I'm just gonna say this personally. I think it's also probably one of, if not the most underrated part of animation in general. Because I only recently learned about compositing like 4 years ago. Whenever I had Sarah Fisher, who had worked on like Hell of a Boss and Has Been Hotel and such, like doing compositing jobs. So like and seeing like exactly what it could do to like really bring an image to life like never before. Like I said, it's a very underrated part of the animation process. So to hear that you actually love bringing that like almost pop to a otherwise flat image, like it's commendable more than anything else.
Oh yeah. And like I think about that too, like especially like in my animation studio, like you ask other people like, "Oh, what do you want to do after college?" And a lot of it is like storyboarding and like the pre-production side.
Right.
And it's like like those things are of course 100% necessary, but it's like I think I was the only one that was like, "Well, I'm kind of interested in cleanup and post-production, like that whole side of the world." So it's like it's definitely underrated in the importance of it in the pipeline and I love like the back end of things of seeing the final realization of the project.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As we start to wind down the interview, Bones, I just have one last question I want to ask you. Oply. What the fuck is that word? Obviously, you are deeply entrenched in art in one way or another. Like you've been for ages. It's been a major part of your life growing up and such. How important is art, not just for you, but for the world as a whole?
Oh my gosh. um so I've taken a few art history um classes in my time. Here we go. I get all professor like.
Hold on a second, let me get the
And
sub
just
box for you. There you go. Yeah.
I think like art is just so attached to being human and being like just attached to this world. And I think there's nothing more powerful than taking like something inside of you and putting it out into the world for everyone to see and like examine and like just know that that's like who you are. Like even if it's something that's like I made this OC for this fandom that's so niche. It's like that's still a part of you. And like when I see like younger artists coming into um like the world of art and like posting like those the beginning drawings or like their budding drawings, it's just like it's kind of inspirational to me in a way, like seeing like these different people from all over the world like producing like these different types of art and creating all these characters. Or even like back in the day, like I think Edward Hopper is an artist who I love a lot, my mom loves a lot, and just like seeing him come back into popularity because of how his paintings reflect like the pandemic and stuff. I think just like art in general, like it's so insanely human, and it's just a part of like who we are. And like from like the cave drawings back in like BC times to digital artists now making little comics about their OCs, like it's just always been there, and it's just so powerful. And I love being able to be a part of something that's so much bigger than me in the world of human history.
That is wonderfully worded, if I do say so myself. A great little punctuation point to this whole entire conversation. That is all the questions that I have for you, Bones. Obviously, I've showered you with a whole bunch of praise already, but I want to shower you with a little bit more because it's my podcast. I do whatever I want. No, like I said, when Tipsy first recommended you to be on the podcast in the first place, like I knew I had to have you at some point. Seeing the work you've been able to put out, whether Tipsy was involved with it or not, like it's been absolutely insane seeing the output and the quality of your work that you've been able to put out there. Getting an opportunity to sit down and talk with you and really truly understand the true love and passion you have for this kind of stuff, like it gives me a new level of love and respect, and it really makes me excited to see what's going to be next for you. I mean, I know we kind of illustrated this, but it might be a little scary, the first step or two, but like with the ideas you have brewing in there, whether it be with the help of someone or the stuff that you want to develop on your own, the willingness to really step up and really help out other people with their things, and just truly like the fun you seem to be having with this stuff, it makes me excited to know that I definitely see a bright future with what you are possibly able to do. Like I can tell by just this conversation that we're having that I feel like the opportunities will be there for you, and you will have the opportunities to really shine and thrive and do some incredible stuff in this animation industry. Long and the short of it is, thank you so much for what you do. Thank you for putting yourself out there, and thank you for being more than willing to help out. It really means a lot, and it's going to be exciting to see what you do from here on out, because I'm going to be one of the people standing by your side, rooting for you every single step of the way, because I know it's going to be something absolutely incredible. So thank you, Bones.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, that is so sweet. I can't thank you enough for giving me the opportunity to come on here and just talk about whatever, like myself for a little bit. It's like it's been a crazy ride, and just getting here has been like so. It's been a journey, and like you said, like I can't wait to see where I go from here. What's next? What's on the road for me? And I just can't thank you enough for this opportunity. Like this is awesome, and like it's been like an awesome experience just to be on here and talk for a little bit.
Well, I personally want to say thank you, but also you need to thank Tipsy for being the one to be like, hey, we need to get her on the podcast. I'm like, don't sweat, we got her, we'll get her.
Of course, I have to say a thank you to Tipsy.
I'll be sure,
I love you, Tipsy.
I'll say, don't worry. I'll be saying my thanks to Tipsy as well. Thank you, Tipsy. Fantastic as always. Now, if people want to know exactly why I've been gushing about the incredible stuff you've been able to do, go ahead and plug your stuff for the people at home.
So You can find me on Twitter at bones underscore, and I post a lot of obviously far-fetched related stuff, mostly about Wisteria and Hemlock. I post a lot about Wisteria is in a ship with Warren Weber, of course. So
Of
I post a
course.
lot about Warren Weber, of course, my favorite. And I always post about horror and just whatever I'm loving in the moment. Like right now, I'm in a Half-Life VR AI phase, so lots of cool stuff with that I'm posting. You can find me on YouTube, Bonez Graveyard. I'm gonna be having an animation meme I'm gonna be posting in like a couple weeks regarding Killer Joke. So that should be fun to see. You can also find In the Pines there, my student film. And that's pretty much it for me.
I should have known that Warren was the one that you instantly gravitated towards. In fact, I saw the honey pie meme that you posted on your YouTube as
Oh
well. So
yeah, that one.
it's like, I know you said that it wasn't a phase, but maybe you'll look back on that and be like, okay, maybe that might have been a tiny part of the phase. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. And if you missed any links, I'll be sure to have them in the description below. I got you covered.
Awesome.
Do you have any final words before we sign off?
Just thank you for having me again. Like, I love doing this, and I love just being able to talk about animation and this crazy thing that I love for just a little bit of time.
Hey, that's all we can ask for when it comes to this crazy world or whatnot. Get an opportunity to talk about the thing that we love, right?
Exactly.
And with that, all I have left to say is for the people at home, if you can, pay your artists.
Exactly. Please pay your artists. They need to eat. They need to pay rent and pay bills.
Give me a call. Tell me what's wrong. Tell me sparks in motion. Sing me a song. Tell me your eyes can all open. Show me it all. Pick me up in the car. You go when you used to call. Show me it all.
Thank you so much for sticking around to the end. If this is your first time listening, I greatly do appreciate it. Like I said in the intro, Bones was someone that Tipsy instantly recommended to me, and I'm so glad to have her on the podcast. Bones, if you've gotten up to this point, seriously, thank you for taking the time to do this, and thank you for the awesome thumbnail as well. I'm so glad that I get to do stuff like this with artists, especially with like Amateur April and stuff. I mean, I know it's not too much different from, most of the other months when it comes to the artists I promote, but I like dedicating certain months to certain things and really trying to give a spotlight to people I might not have even really considered beforehand. I mean, to be fair with how today's art world is working, it's getting, I'm not gonna lie, it's getting harder and harder to find smaller and smaller artists. Um, I mean, it could also be partially on me, but I mean, regardless, you see the people that I get to talk to on this podcast. I mean, it's been some really good quality stuff. And can I just say, April, these past couple episodes have been really sensational. But even past the podcast itself, I'm excited for what's going to be happening next month. For those who don't know, May is a big month for me. My birthday is going to be on the 15th. I'm going to a wrestling show on the 18th, one of my favorite wrestling shows. Shout out Classic City Wrestling. And from the 23rd to the 28th of May, I'm going to be in Atlanta to be a part of MomoCon with a bunch of friends, hopefully meeting some of the former guests and friends of the podcast as well. I'm really excited for MomoCon more than anything else, because this is my first time ever going to a convention. Not just, any kind of convention, not just MomoCon, any convention ever. So I'm really excited. And I got some big plans for what I want to do with the podcast there. As a matter of fact, as I'm speaking, I'm sitting next to a couple of portable microphones that I plug into my phone. So I'm just saying I might do some, in real life content that I think you guys would absolutely love and enjoy. But, hopefully whether it be next month or any month after you guys are willing to stick by my side, willing to root and support me, willing to root and support all these other artists that make their way through here, show love and support for the podcast. Because if that's just May, can you imagine what the rest of the year is going to look like? I know I'm certainly excited for it, and I hope you guys are excited with me too.